You can now support the show through Patreon or by purchasing the new Will I Vike It and Saxon Forager merch. There's some really great designs, some of which were done by the fantastic Saxon storyteller. If you can't spare the money but still want to show your support, click the subscribe button. It really does help. Enjoy the episode, and I hope you like it. Hello and welcome back to the Will I Vike It podcast. Today, my guest via Zoom is Matt Cockin from the FruitPig company. So welcome, Matt.
Good morning.
So you've come on today particularly because I was drawn to your black pudding, which we'll get to in a bit because I've got some that you've sent me here and we're going to cook it up and have my first taste. I've been waiting for most of this week for this day. So it's quite exciting. So I will just uncover this one as well, which I've pre-cooked because you sent me a haggis as well. And as
it's haggis season, so I thought it was appropriate to send you a haggis as well.
It is, exactly. So what is it that you do at the FruitPig company?
We started off as general butchers, but then we realised as we developed through, Grant and I wanted to make something more unique because there's some very good butchers up in Norfolk and Cambridgeshire.
Yeah.
The business was fine, but it wasn't, lighting any candles really. We sent our animals, because we're both smallholders, I was a smallholder, to a local abattoir. We asked if we could collect the blood, and initially that was all fine, and we started to collect the blood, and we started to make a fresh blood black pudding. We knew it was rare, but actually in those early days, about 6-7 years ago, we didn't realise how rare a fresh blood black pudding was. So, pardon me, I've got a bit of a tickle. So we started to make it, started to get, 30 kilos, turned into 40 kilos, turned into 50. The recipe was very nice. And as we became more expert, we realised that all the famous names now make it with, as I said before, earlier on when we had a quick chat, dried blood powder. And you're aware of that as well. I mean, industrial productions like in Lancashire, it's probably a lot easier to open a bag and powdered blood, add water, but also BSE killed off an awful lot of that side of the abattoir working. So most of the blood, in fact, almost all the blood that's harvested these days is thrown away and goes into fertilizers or gets incinerated. But we're slaughtermen. Once we realised it was quite a USP, we then pushed hard to keep it because we realised our business was growing. So from general butchers, we now manufacture nearly 40 tons of fresh blood black pudding a year. We make a white pudding, and we also make a haggis that we sell, especially in January time, for Burns Night. So we're primarily the only fresh blood black pudding producers in the country now.
So wondering actually, is that why? So you sort of, I think you said you more recently you became slaughterman.
2016 we qualified. We used to work to garner favour at the abattoir to collect the blood. We used to work in the lairage, which is where you corral the animals,
right?
For pre-inspection, and you look after them, and then you put them through the abattoir process. They changed the law in 2016 that you had to be a slaughterman to do the lairage duty. So we got thrown out. So we then qualified as slaughterman to be able to do that job. And also, of course, we then did the ultimate job of dispatching the animals and harvesting the blood. And it's something, although it's obviously not a nice thing to talk about generally, it's something that we're proud of because it means that we're responsible for the whole process. And like I said, it's not a dinner party conversation, but it's something that we're quietly proud of because we're not just picking stuff up that someone else has had to do.
Yeah,
we're doing the whole thing. And like I say, it's what we do it every Thursday.
Yeah.
We now go to a larger abattoir because we need more blood. And actually the small abattoirs, like a lot of abattoirs, are closed now. So no, we don't work as slaughtermen anymore. It's a bigger factory. But because we are slaughtermen and we have the qualifications, the abattoir owner is happy for us to be there.
Right.
And it's rather pleasant. He buys and sells our black pudding as well.
Oh, nice. So really, so the whole process really was just to give you access to the blood to make it properly, shall we say?
Initially, yes,
Yeah.
there was very little. There was very little thought about what the whole story was about. It was just to get access to the product. But like I say, it's now developed into something, because it is so rare, that
Yeah.
we're quietly proud of. Yeah, you know, every business wants a unique selling point, because it makes a difference, and that is ours.
It certainly makes you stand out, doesn't it? I mean, that's that was what drew me to you in the first place. As I've mentioned to you before, a friend of mine is a goat farmer, and she was singing the praises of how much better your black pudding was to, you know, stuff made with powder. And so I thought it was worth having a chat and having a taste at the same time is the important thing. So I've just turned my frying pan on. We can carry on talking, but I'm going to put some of your black pudding on so I can actually taste some, so I know what we're talking about.
Good. So you've never tried it before?
Never before. So,
oh God.
as I say, it arrived this week. So, I deliberately, my wife's been going, can we have some for Brett? No, we can't have any yet. I'm going to wait until Sunday. So I'm just going to fry it in a bit of butter. Is that the best thing, do you think?
It's whatever you like to do. Obviously, butter's nice and rich.
Yeah.
A bit of oil. So obviously, if you grill it, there's no fat. There's just the natural fats in the black pudding. I know some black puddings are low fat. Ours is reassuringly not low fat.
Okay. What else goes into your pudding? I'm just having a look now, but I'm sure you can tell me.
Most northern black puddings tend to have a meal in them. English black pudding tends to have oats in. Scottish black pudding tends to have oats and barley. Isn't that lovely?
Anyone can see that.
So they're the barley kernels there. They're the cooked barley, pearl barley, that we cook first, and then we put it in. So ours is quite nutty, like a Scottish black pudding. We love the Scottish style. So most Scottish black puddings tend not to have too many lumps of fat visible in them. A British black pudding, sort of in the Midlands, I don't think you get one without. We actually make both types so that we can pander to both the markets. But we make ours with barley, oats, fresh onion. We have an onion factory just down the road.
Yeah.
So whereas a lot of people use a dried onion, which they rehydrate, we actually use fresh white onion, which is lovely as well. And then the earthy spices, salt, pepper, coriander, mace, nutmegs, things like that, that everyone tends to put in a black pudding, whether you're from Poland or Germany. So the kaszanka and the bloedworst tend to be that sort of base, but with a slightly different meal. They'll use buckwheat in Poland because that's what they have always used. French, the boudin noir tends to be a bit creamier, a bit richer, with very little meal in it because they don't have a tradition for that. But so very many flavors. German smoke theirs a lot. It tends to be a lot of a harder style of black pudding as well. You know, you can almost hit it like a salami. But luckily they're all varied, as are lots of the British ones as well, which is
nice. So you probably wouldn't be aware, but I have actually made a version that's in one of my cookbooks. And I basically tried to make what potentially they could have made Anglo-Saxon Viking period times. And so, as you're saying about the exotic spices and things, I had to take all that out. It's been a while since I've made any, so I might just quickly check in the book and I can tell you what I've put in my version. But it's interesting because I think I try to promote people using as much of the animal as possible. And now I'm starting to doubt that with you guys and your fresh blood. I'm looking more into the ethicalness of the dry blood and where it actually comes from. It seems to come from mixed sources of unknown origin, I would say, in a lot of cases.
All the blood, the dried blood powder is collected, as far as I'm aware, from European abattoirs that therefore are conforming to European law, as we do still.
Right.
They're highly regulated environments with vets and inspectors, both before and after. And the olden days of, grandma saying, well, we used to walk around the back of the butchers and there'd be a pig running around and they'd dispatch it somehow with a gun or with a knife, and it could get quite visceral. These are very regulated and as humane as they can be, I think is the way we need to put it. But so they collect the blood. These factory units are huge. You know, there are tens of thousands of animals going through it every day. And how you make a powdered blood, I'm not too sure if I'm aware, you know, to suddenly turn it into a powder, because of course, when my blood dries up, you can see a little bit if you were a child with a blooded knee, but then it just disappears or evaporates. So I don't know what's holding it on, but it is from a factory shop. Factory abattoir. They are humane. They can source it through there, and of course, then industrially it gets put into bags, and all the black pudding makers then mix it with water and make their black pudding. It's certainly a lot nicer than getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and going to an abattoir for 5 o'clock and then getting quite messy in a very dangerous environment with knives.
And I assume, do you have to make your puddings sort of fairly quickly? Because blood congeals, doesn't it, once it's...
It does congeal, but there's also another law that says you can't remove an offal unless it's under 3 degrees in temperature. So as quickly as we collect it through our sieves, we've got special sieves and everything, we then tape it all up, do all the registration documentation, and then have to leave it in the abattoir chillers until it's under 3 degrees. Only then can we remove it legally. So we let it stay there for 48 hours. That blast chillers, huge rooms. So we tend to slaughter on a Thursday and a Friday, leave it over the weekend, and then pick it up on the Monday. And that keeps us legal with everything. And our local abattoir now, where it used to be 6 miles away, that small abattoir closed. Sorry again. Our local abattoir is now 52 miles away. And so we go 52 miles each way twice. So we do the collection day, and then we do the harvest day, and then we do the collection day to pick up the barrels in food hygiene containers. So it's a little bit intense, and it's a little bit involved, but at the end of the day, that is our USP, and that's probably why we're the only ones doing it. It is a bit difficult.
Yeah. And I'll guess I'll find out in a minute, but I'm assuming that it's going to make a difference to the taste.
Oh, I really hope so, because it's going to be a very short. It's going to be a very short podcast. No, as I was just saying, as you put it in your mouth, blind, and then tasting it. Oh my God, this is the worst black pudding I've ever tasted.
Well, the podcast is called "Will I Vike It?" So the question is, will I Vike
it? We're fine.
I might have overdone that one a little bit on the bottom, but I think that should be pretty good.
It's hard to ask the producer what it's like, because they're of course going to tell you that it's the best thing you've ever going to eat. But it is richer, it is less powdery, which I suppose you would expect because it hasn't got the dried blood powder in. You know, there's a lack of grittiness about it. It's smoother. It doesn't hold together like a commercial, because many of the commercial ones also have binders and things like that. So some of the commercial ones can be quite rubbery. Ours isn't. Ours, if you treat it badly, will fall apart. See what you think. I'm quite scared now.
This is the first time I've done a cook along as well.
Oh no!
So good. Oh wow, that's really good.
Honestly,
honestly, yes. Oh no, it's terrible. Interview's over. No, it's that's got a really rich flavor. It's really kind of smooth, like you say, in the mouth. It's I think I'm gonna have to stop buying the other stuff.
Well, the thing is, and it's good and bad in a way. There are some very good, flavoursome, quality dried blood black puddings out there. I won't mention who they are, but one of them happens to be a Scottish island. We'll keep it like that. And they are quite rightly very famous because they make a quality product. Other commercial ones we find are extremely bland. And what an average black pudding lover will say, oh yeah, love it on a fried breakfast, yeah. And I just coat it in brown sauce. Well, what you actually like is some sort of form of soft biscuit then that carries a lot of brown sauce. And as much as, you know, when people say of any of our produce, and I know it comes across as a bit pompous, but we don't mean to, please try it without anything first. Because it's peppery, it's got a richness of flavour, and then the pepper hits you at the back a little bit.
And then quite a bit of a heat to it.
You put a bit of an egg on that just to smooth it out, and then suddenly you've got a very, and it's beautiful. And of course we'd say that because we make the thing, but it really is a different thing. Whereas a lot of people, when they even talk about white pudding, which we also make, ours is also very flavoursome. They say, "Oh, I love white pudding, Irish white pudding on an Irish breakfast, delicious. Cover it in tomato sauce." And you go, well, again, what are you actually eating there? You're just eating another soft biscuit to carry lots of tomato sauce, which we all love. And it's, you know, it's a weird thing. So we do love our black pudding. We do eat it all the time. We do mix it all the time. And of course, well, the nice thing we're finding is that from 30 kilos to 100 kilos, we're now selling a ton a week. We're having to collect an awful lot of blood. We're not at capacity yet, but, you know, it is a limited, for us, it is a limited thing. We'd love to almost, and we have done a couple of times in the year, gone, I'm sorry, we've run out. And it's lovely because it isn't limitless. The blood being the most important thing. The amount of oats, I can get 10 tons of oats in tomorrow. But the blood's the limiting factor.
I'm a big fan of pepper. So that heat that comes off the pepper at the end. Yeah, that's a winner.
The only crit we do get is generally if they're a bit sensitive to pepper. I mean, it's not blow your socks off pepper, but it just builds gently. But again, you'll very rarely eat black pudding on its own. It'll be with beans and egg, tomatoes, sausage, a bit of fried bread or toast.
Chili sauce would be my go-to.
Whose sauce?
Chili sauce.
Chili?
Chili.
Oh,
spicy.
Right. Oh, chili sauce, yes.
Chili sauce.
But
sorry, I've got my mouth full. Black pudding.
Yeah, I do like a mild chili, especially, you know, something smoky as well. A bit of chipotle in there. That works.
That was delicious.
Thank you. I'm so pleased. It was a risk.
Right, so yeah, I very quickly, I did say I'll tell you what I put in my version. So it's oats, barley, onion, fresh, not dried, pork fat, and then there's salt, pepper, coriander seed, mustard seed, thyme, savoury, and then your dried blood. And I usually do it in a sausage casing.
Beautiful, yeah.
So it comes out sort of like that.
Lovely, almost like the bury rings they call it. And as you can see, with all the there's a nice grittiness with the oats and the barley.
Yeah.
And obviously, historically in England, they used pennyroyal as well, didn't they? A very well, overused in the early days, but very not used at all these days. And you know, with the slight mintiness of pennyroyal was very, very keenly used.
So I did still put pepper in mine because, as I say, I'm a fan of pepper, which at the time would have been imported, so it would have been expensive. So mine's quite a luxury pudding for the time. But it took a bit of experimenting because I took out some of the other flavorings that you'd add. It kind of lacked anything at first. And so I had to really play around with the quantities and chuck a lot more herbs and things in there just to try and give it a nice flavor. You know, but compared to wherever it's gone, your one, I don't know if I need to make any anymore. I think I should be buying it.
It's readily available. Thank you.
So whilst we're talking about food and I'm chewing and people are listening to me, I'm going to try your haggis as well, which I did cook just before we started. So it's still, it's warm to the touch. It's not hot. I actually had someone on last week and we did an episode about Burns Night and haggis. So this is a nice sort of follow-on one.
The only difference that we find with all the commercial haggises, and we love haggis so much, all the famous ones like McSween's, just love eating theirs. The only difference we have with ours is we tend to put a lot more of the meats in there, the heart and the lung. So ours is quite softer and juicier. It's less biscuity, and we love ours. I mean, I ate it on Burns Night, funny old thing, but we make it and eat it all year round, if I'm being honest.
Well, yeah, that's really nice flavour to that. It's not, because some people are put off by offal flavours, and I wouldn't say that as very offally. That's quite meaty, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, it's more meaty than offally, I think. But then I think I checked your ingredients. You don't use liver or anything, do you? So it's heart and lungs.
Liver's a very strong flavour. So we put lamb's hearts, lamb's lungs, and then, like most commercial makers now, there's not much fat with lamb. Well, it's almost no fat with lamb. So we use beef suet. Pardon me. But ours doesn't. You can't biscuit ours. You can't slice it and fry it as a slice. There's far too much meat to oat ratio. Ours is quite oaty, and certainly some good barley in there, as a good haggis should have. But
yeah, you can. It's got that bite to it from the barley. It's quite creamy on the tongue. It's sort of very smooth.
Oh, good.
Yeah, very nice.
It's not to everyone's taste, but again, we that little grocers on Piccadilly, Fortnum and Mason use it. So we're very pleased that people do like it. We did 2 tons. We sold 2 tons of that in January.
Wow. I suppose with Burns Night coming up.
Yeah, Maiden sold 2 tons. But we make it all year round. We sell about 200 or 300 kilos a month. Probably might slow down a little bit in August, but it's such a versatile product. Really
is that all over Europe, or do you just sell in the UK?
Just in the UK. We'd like to sell in Europe, but obviously export licensing and things at the moment post Brexit have got very difficult, so we've stopped. But I think haggis is really underrated.
Yeah, that's very nice. A lot more. It's milder and subtler than the black pudding flavour, and it's quite creamy. I don't know if you could. I mentioned on the other episode I did that it's illegal to import haggis to America because of the lungs.
Oh, is it the lungs?
Apparently so. Yeah, the FDA won't allow it. So if you ever want a haggis smuggling business,
it goes through Canada first, like it used to do in the early 20s with certain other liquor.
Yeah. I'm going to use my fingers now because the last bits are a bit crumbly there, but I definitely want to get it all up because that's really good.
I'm glad you like it. Well, like I say, if you need to sate your thirst and hunger, it's made all year round. So.
No, very nice. I have got a few in the freezer that I made myself. Again, trying to sort of Vike it up a little bit.
Just be careful with the lungs. Sorry, the liver, because lamb's liver is a really strong flavour. So just be aware.
Yeah, my one's quite awfully compared to that. That's
Oh right, okay.
But I couldn't get hold of any lungs at the time. So I actually made mine with goat liver, kidneys, and hearts. It was the pluck from the two goats.
Your local butcher normally gets the pluck back with the lambs, especially if they're a producer as well, a farmer as well. And they should better give you the lungs, but they tend to put the lungs into dog foods and things like that.
Oh, okay.
A lot of these raw dog food producers tend to take those.
So do you know, we sort of briefly touched on this before we started the episode, but do you talking more about the historical side of using blood, as we were saying before, about using the whole animal, which would have been quite important historically because you wouldn't let anything go to waste. So how much do you really know about the history, or are you just a producer? Or
I know a little bit by dint of the fact that we've become producers, and we've done a little bit of the history work ourselves, and we've been asked. We did a bit of TV work years and years ago, and so we did do a bit of research, and it shocked me to see just how far back it's been recorded. But then again, if they've been killing animals, we know about the ritualistic. We see pagan movies or movies doing paganistic rituals. We know that blood tends to be on the more, not evil side, but blood is a life given, a life taker, and you have lots of rituals, whether they've been true or not. When you look at especially some of the old black and white movies where they're doing something to a deity and a god.
Yeah.
So yeah, 800 BC. But as you say, if you're a hunter-gatherer and there wasn't a supermarket, obviously, which there wasn't, you had to use everything. And if you look at, which is lovely on YouTube, there's an Inuit tribe or an Inuit community, and they do an awful lot. I think it's in northern Canada, but they do an awful lot of cooking, and they show you where their freezer is, which is underground, of course, because it's frozen through the firmer. And they make an awful lot of blood sausage now, and it's just blood sausage. There might be a few herbs and spices, but it literally is a soft boudin in the casing from the pigs or the deer that they've killed, and they're catching carp, and they're even harvesting fresh water in the river during summer to then freeze it down in winter to have fresh water, and that's obviously centuries old of using blood. And of course, it's a good binder. So you've got the warmth, you've got the richness, everything is healthy. There's a lot of iron in blood, and if you can't get it in winter from your natural foodstuffs, then eating blood sausage probably is a necessity for survival.
Yeah, I guess you could.
Or it's part of that. It's part of that.
I mean, if it was sort of a dried sausage, it would probably store relatively well, thinking historically. So as you're getting ready for your winter.
Well, these were frozen on the video, and then they just put them in boiling water. They plump up, but it's all intestine. And all he's doing then is putting a bit of salt on, and he sits outside in the minus 50 degrees, and so his air's just coming off. He's like that. And he's sat there with his huskies, and he's just chopping this blood sausage up and just throwing it into his mouth. But you can see from the texture and style, it really is quite spongy, and it's almost all blood, because as we said when we were first chatting, some of the blood cakes and the blood meringues, if you go to Italy, you can get a blood pudding that actually is a sweet pudding. And one of my local hotels wanted some dried blood powder, because we keep a little bit just for demonstration purposes, but we had to buy a 10-kilo bag. So I gave it to Eric, and he took it to his restaurant, and he made a blood meringue as a pudding.
Yeah, I've heard of a blood meringue, actually. Yeah. Other ones are blood pancakes, which they usually make. I think it's more of a Swedish thing, which is usually beer and blood.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And then what else is there? There's the black bread. So there's a Viking age find of a bread, and it's been analysed, and it contains a protein, and it's often thought it was probably something like blood being added. So you can see they get inventive. There's lots of different ways that people have tried to make sure that they're getting everything they can from the animal when they kill it. Which
that's the best way.
Yeah,
it is the best way. I mean, we're all getting. I think the education in the last 20 years of where our food has come from has increased so much. Whereas before we just used to go to our Dewhurst style butcher, get our meat. The supermarkets came along obviously a lot earlier than 20 years ago, but we started to care, and terms like free range was almost the minimum requirement, and organic had its day. But lots of people now, you're talking about regenerative farming, the great circle. But also, once if that animal is going to be dispatched and killed, the last thing we ought to be doing is throwing a lot of it away and just eating the tenderloin. And so you've got people that we deal with, a company called Field and Flower, are really trying to harness, and a lot of chefs are now, not just the cheaper cuts for cheapness sake. I mean, some of these cheaper beef cuts now are so expensive because they're so popular, but it's covering everything from the animal to make sure that if it's going to go in and get killed for our consumption, we need to use as much of it as possible. And it's increasing all the time, and blood is part of that. It's just that some industrial abattoir processes don't lend themselves to collecting the blood that way, because it's got to be collected fit for human consumption. It's got to be collected cleanly. It's very difficult to do that mechanically, remotely. And so we stand in the line with our filters and our bins, holding a pig, because things don't sit still when they're dying. And it's a very dangerous environment. And I've got half an ear to prove. Well, it's back on. They sewed the other half back on, but kicking hooves are kicking hooves. They are very dangerous.
Was it? A kick hooves.
Kicking hoof and a metal shackle.
Oh,
But the local slaughterman said to me, and I said, "Oh, I think I've just been hit." And I knew I'd been hit. And he went, "Oh, it's all right. It's just a scratch." And so we carried on. It was slightly underplayed.
wow. Yeah.
It was in winter, so we were very cold anyway, so nothing moved. So once I got out of the abattoir, started to clean myself down, I realised that I was getting quite warm here. And yeah, it was a little more than a scratch.
Yeah.
And I said to him the next week, I said, "Peter, that wasn't a scratch. That half my head." He said, "Yeah, it's all right, really." Got to be a bit hard. You've got to man up on it in the slaughterhouse.
I was surprised that didn't like shut down production or anything, having someone that had taken their ear off.
This was a small family abattoir. We did 30 pigs in the week, really. So we did 30 pigs in the one day, and it was me and this chap and another chap, and it's a small, almost as small as the room I'm in now. It was a good while ago, but me coming off the line wouldn't have helped them. That'd have created loads of work for Peter and the other chap. So they said, "Well, you're fine."
Carry on.
That is fine. Peter's no doctor, and I'm glad of that. But we're still mates now.
That's the best thing. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, as far as like using the whole animal and stuff comes as well, like I've tried to use things like goat heads and sheep heads, and that's another one where to get them out of the factory is a nightmare.
Well, goat and sheep, of course, post a lot of the mad cow disease and things like that. There's lots of stuff that cannot be used and must be removed and gets double inspected: spinal cords, spinal columns, things like that from animals over a certain age. And it's all there to make sure that the food that you see at your butchers, hopefully you're going to a butcher and not a supermarket, is the best quality it can be. And it starts there. And that I said to you, I did a recent post specifically about not singing the praises of an abattoir, but just, hey, people, just appreciate not what we do, but appreciate that these abattoir workers that you think do a messy and dirty job, and they do, but it's extremely, I mean, we've got video cameras everywhere in our abattoir. And there is someone monitoring those video cameras 24, well, all the time. There is the process going on. The animals get inspected before, during, and after. And then the after inspection line at ours, it's a very busy abattoir. We must have official inspectors that are literally grading and checking everything. There must be 5 in the line, all highly skilled, all highly qualified. And the last abattoir inspector has the oval stamp that you sometimes see on the skin of pork, lamb and beef. And only then is it passed fit for human consumption.
I think that's good to know, though, because then you know that everything's being done humanely and in the best way possible. Because it is one thing people worry about when they're eating meat is, I mean, you do see these videos pop up online of people kicking the animals and things, don't you? And treating them badly. And so then that almost taints everyone else because they just assume that that's the industry. So it's good to know that actually there are things in place that protect the animals at the same time.
Well, we're a very busy abattoir. The video cameras start as the animals go in. They're inspected by the vet. They're inspected ante and postnatal, but so that all that is formally done, and they obviously count them in. They then check them in the lairage. They then get moved through to where they're going to be dispatched and go through the abattoir process, and they get inspected there again. And I suppose, yes, because of those videos, we've all seen them. Sadly, in every part of life, there'll be cheats, there'll be people that don't have the same standards as you do. I certainly couldn't be connected with any abattoir. The small village abattoir, which was on the Sandringham estate in Norfolk, was a family-run thing, had been for years. 2 or 3 people doing the job on a Monday morning from early doors to lunchtime, and it was all proper done. And we used to work in another abattoir, again a village one that's also sadly closed. And that was a lovely family-run, correctly done. But yeah, I've seen them online, and I've seen when certain other groups that are anti that. I understand it, and it doesn't do the industry any good whatsoever. But ultimately, you know, they get stunned and then they get dispatched, and it gets done. There's regulations for everything, 15 seconds, and it's very efficient. But at the end of the day, I understand why people just want to see a nice piece of meat, and please don't tell me about it.
It must be a tough. I bet it depends on how you are, in your own mind, I guess. But I think a lot of people would struggle to actually dispatch an animal and sort of go through the whole process. Although most people are happy to eat meat, I bet there aren't many people that would go as far as to actually slaughter an animal.
I think, you know, we're end of January now. I was driving in North Norfolk yesterday. I saw 2 shoots being run in the field. Well, every gun is a slaughterman. Every specimen fisherman, especially sea fisherman, is a slaughterman. Most river fishermen, but every European river fisherman is a slaughterman, because, of course, in Germany, for example, you can't put anything back. You have to kill what you catch and eat it. I think the slaughterman means things to people. Whereas you go, I like going fishing. Oh, that's lovely, the riverbank. Yeah, but I've caught a trout and it's in my bag now. So there's a lot of that in it. Obviously, it gets cloaked in different terms. But yes, but like we are awfully proud. Yeah, I think that's the right word, that we are in control of our whole business from start to finish. We're involved. We don't rely on a factory in Spain to do this job for us. We do that job. Like I said, I haven't actually ever worked out the accurate phrase to use to make it not sound like I'm a scary chap that you would never want to meet. But I am qualified slaughterman. To do that, I had to learn how to dispatch with a knife. And I'm proud. I'm proud that my business does everything. It's a sticky wicket.
I think
I don't
that is the
I don't know if I've explained it well without coming across as a bloodthirsty person.
But
I'm not.
I mean, you said that you started off with pigs originally, and you've sort of moved on with the process to the point where I would see it as you've probably looked at the ethics behind everything and realized that it's better for yourself to do it. So I can see why you would be proud of that. You know, you haven't shied away from the whole process and just gone, here's my animal, and then it turns back up and it's in a packet. You know, you've actually taken control of that. So I think there is a reason to be proud of something like that.
I mean, I've watched the first episodes of Jeremy Clarkson's farm thing, and he took, if you remember, in the first series, he got some lambs in for the first ever time, because obviously he was doing everything for the first time, in a very Jeremy Clarkson way. We'll leave it there. But one of the things, he had 3 lambs, I think, were barren, so he took them to the abattoir. He went to the abattoir owner, blah, blah, blah. He said, I'm just going to go and say goodbye, only because he'd named them. And the abattoir owner went, too late. And I actually think that Clarkson was visibly moved from having them running around in the field and obviously escaping, and probably was swearing a lot when they escaped. It really did affect him that was it. Now, he knew that. Of course, he isn't naive that going to an abattoir, that's where they're going to go. But he still wasn't obviously ready.
Wasn't prepared,
and that's certainly what that wasn't acted. That wasn't acted in my eyes. I'm not a professional, and it is an interesting place to go. And some people don't like to go there. You've just got to be a little bit honest without probably ramming it down people's throats. It's there. You know it's there. You can't have a chicken breast and a chicken tikka masala on a Friday night with not knowing that was once a chicken.
So we did once upon a time, when we first got our own house and a garden. That was my dream. Was I wanted to make my own Christmas dinner, from growing the sprouts to the bird on the table. And so we did actually hatch ducks.
Oh yeah.
And we did, and the whole time, obviously posting videos, they're swimming in the bar. Oh, look at your duck. You'll never go through with it. And of course, I mean, I can't remember what they were, 10 weeks old, 12 weeks old, I think, when they're big enough. And yeah, we went through with it despite people go, you'll never be able to do it. And like, well, we did, and we did it as humanely as possible. We even spoke to the RSPCA about it to make sure that they were happy that we were doing it in our own house, and tried to do it all as quickly as possible. And funnily enough, I envisioned there being a lot of blood. I was thinking I'll collect the blood in the bucket and I'll use that to use the whole animal. And we got like 2 drips come out of each one. I think like not enough to
birds.
do.
I think in Vietnam there's like a chicken. I think it might be Vietnam. There's like blood from a chicken to make a certain item. I've had chickens at home and I've got rid of them killed them for the pot. Goodness knows how many chickens you need for some of those dishes, because like you said, there was nothing. There was no blood whatsoever. So I don't know what it is really.
I know historically there's around the 15th century there are recipes that use things like duck blood, and like you say, you need how many would you need to get a sausage? It's incredible. Like, it's probably not even worth the effort at that point. Again, if you've got an animal like a pig, there's going to be a lot of blood, so use it. But when it's something that's got a couple of drips, you've got to wonder why they bother.
Get about 4 litres off a pig. I suppose if you a duck heart, because obviously certain gastropubs have chicken's hearts and chicken's livers and duck hearts. I suppose maybe they mash the heart up, because that's. But then again, it's all fibres and blood. I don't know. I haven't a scoop on it. I'm not making a chicken black pudding anytime soon.
So the other one at the time as well, from the 15th century, was a wealthy thing, was to have porpoise blood pudding.
Wow.
Okay. I'm not suggesting that you put that on the range, but when we look back at the history, that is one of the ways that people did it. There's not much that hasn't been used at one point to make a blood sausage. There's horses and things as well.
And there's bound to be, because again, I know it's unpalatable to the average British person, horses, and my family have horses for what we normally use for riding and show jumping and things like that. So to see what happens just over the water, but at the end of the day, depending on how far you go, the domestic dog is used. So we've got to be careful how we judge people, because of course, to an average vegetarian and a vegan, what I do is abhorrent. So I understand that it's basically it's attitude, it's history, and there's just certain things. I don't like eel, and when I lived in Germany, my next door neighbours ate eel noon, and they had their own little smoker, and every time we're invited over, I always had to have a little bit. But it's just something I wouldn't ever risk. But they used to go mad for these things that were only about this long and as thick as your finger, and it was so rich and heavy, and it was just one mouthful was enough for a month for me.
I have a question that maybe won't go out, because it was just something someone asked me and I don't know the answer. I could probably Google it, but as you've farmed pigs,
okay,
why don't we milk pigs? We milk cows and sheep and goats. It's come up on one of my courses, and I just do you know what? I'm not a farmer. I don't know.
Pigs only produce milk when they just stay, but then cattle would only do that as well. But we make them do it.
Yeah.
Pigs,
because historically they didn't either. Like, pigs were used for meat, and that was it.
Well, pigs are technically above ground rabbits, aren't they? So if you imagine that they must have been at the bottom of every food chain historically. So they'd live in the jungle, funny old thing, like a chicken would. They'd live in the woods to keep, but pigs, like rabbits, evolved to make a lot of pigs quickly, because they are on everyone else's food chain, and that would have been from, okay, not pterodactyls, but you know what I mean, whatever animals were around in the wild. So a pig gestates for about 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days. But straight after that, so once the pig has given birth to normally 10 to 17 piglets, which is a lot, it would then, as soon as it had weaned itself, or as soon as the farmer weans the pig off, three days later, they come back on heat, ready to go again. So although commercial pigs, you think, well, that's cruel. Actually, it is what they were evolved to do. So 3 days later, they bloom, they send out the pheromones. If they're fit and healthy, the boar in the pack, the herd would go in again. So she'd be pregnant again within 3 days of waving goodbye to the litter. And so commercially, you get 2.5 litters a year out of a pig. And that's what happens. You say, oh no, God, it's all industrial. But pigs in the wild did that. They were always meant to be permanently producing, because every cat, wolf, coyote, and the equivalent of whatever else was a carnivore in the area said, happy days, pigs live here. And that's why they squeal when you pick them up, because it's a warning sign for the rest of the flock, the herd, their mates. And hence why ducks give 10 or 12 right straight away, but 10 days later on the pond there are 7 left, and then there's 4 left, and then there's it's the great circle of life. Now I know obviously ducks get flattened on a road, but again, pike and weasels and carrion take them as they see fit. So there'd be no ducks left, there'd be no pigs left, because they just all die out. And so pigs are meant to breed. And I just wonder if either the milk's not very nice, or it's just the fact that it was easier to say to a cow that has 1 calf a year, keep going.
Yeah, because I kind of went down. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never been asked it.
Maybe I should keep this in then, because I thought you'd go, that's a stupid question. Why are you asking? The other things I thought is, pigs, potentially, I don't know whether they'd be too aggressive to try and attach to a machine and milk. But then historically, they wouldn't have been on a machine. But it's funny, we've never even tried to breed them that way. We've bred animals to do certain things and characteristics over the years.
But we've done the goats, haven't we? There's lots of civilizations that still live on goat milk.
Makes you think that maybe it just doesn't taste good.
I've never been asked that question. I'm going to find out.
I didn't know whether to include this in the episode, but now I think maybe I should, because
I'm going to find out.
Yeah, I thought as you'd kept pigs, you might have known, but that's all right.
Yeah, but also because I've always been interested in the history of pigs, hence I know a bit about the evolution of pigs. You'd have thought that, oh yes, and that tribe there or that people there, I can't imagine some people didn't. But they're an Asian animal. They're from Asia, historically. Obviously, we had the European wild boar, which we're introducing again now. And obviously, some of the domestic ones have escaped and are wreaking havoc in the New Forest and places like that. But you talk to the average American, they'll say, you've done what? You've got rid of them, and now you've let them out again. Oh, yes. Good luck.
I bet it's the same with beavers and stuff, isn't it? They're all getting sort of re-released and rewilded and reintroduced.
I just wonder if our ecology has not grown up. I'd love to see a beaver and an otter and all the natural things, but the landscape has changed somewhat. So I hope they do survive. I don't see them being as destructive as a wild boar. If you talk to the average farmer that has wild boar around him, he or her, and then they say, well, no, a beaver, okay, they might do a bit of damming, but what they don't do is kill a cornfield.
And I guess that's the other issue, which comes back to the whole hunting of deer and stuff as well, is that there are no natural predators. So if you've got these pigs out there, then someone's going to have to manage them like we do with deer.
And you have to, because deer are very successful in this country. And certain tree farmers and crop farmers say, well, the deer just take everything. But we've got the same with wood pigeon. I mean, wood pigeon can, a flock of 500 wood pigeon can. That's that field finished until next year.
I've had the pigeon experience in the garden. They always get the brassicas.
But wood pigeon are delicious. I love eating wood pigeon.
Not enough meat on them though.
Just take the breasts off. Breasts off.
Yeah, that's what I've always done with them.
Peel them. peel them, and like a jacket, and then take 2 beautiful medallions.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, love
very
it.
nice. Yeah,
especially with our bacon.
Oh, you do bacon as well?
Yeah, we do back bacon. There's a bit of a sideline. It's about 8% of the business, but we do lots of cheek bacon. We're talking about heads.
Yeah.
We do a lot of guanciale, Italian cheek bacon, which is basically pancetted bacon. And oh no, very sweet, very fatty. But again, on the wild game, venison is a very lean meat. It's a beautiful meat. Pigeon breast is a very lean meat. But you wrap pigeon breast in streaky bacon or lardons of, a load of lardons from a belly or a cheek, and you've got a nicely moist, hopefully if it's cooked correctly, piece of meat.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit like we mentioned liver before. I think it's that same combination. You kind of your liver and bacon, your pigeon and your bacon. There's a similar flavour, I think. Yeah, bacon makes everything better. I think is the answer most people give when they say I could never give up meat because of bacon. It's just that one thing everyone loves.
Well, it is evocative, isn't it? If when I had friends a couple of years ago staying over, I couldn't get them up. They'd all had a few beers the night before. There's strewn all over the floors. It was like a summer party. I got the pan on and started cooking bacon. It was almost like the Pied Piper of Hamelin. they all arrived.
So I think we'll start to wrap up because I don't want to take up too much of your time.
No worries.
So there's a few standard questions that I ask everyone.
Right.
There's 6 in total. 3 I put out only on Patreon. So what we'll do is we'll ask the 3, we'll say goodbye to everyone, and then we'll record the bonus ones for my patrons afterwards.
Okie dokie. No worries at all.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So the first one is, if you had an unlimited budget, what would be your dream project?
Weirdly, I think off the top of my head, because we've just been talking about what we've been talking about, I would love. Abattoirs are really struggling because of the rules and regulations, and because of a lot the rules. Some of the rules and regulations are very, very valid, but it's difficult. It's a messy job, and there's not a lot of money in it. So you're always biting at things. I'd love to do an abattoir, bearing in mind it's my business and I'm in that business.
Yeah.
Just design, and no one's doing it these days, but a brand new abattoir with all the modern techniques that we now can involve, because many abattoirs are 100 years old. And not just to make it humane, but to make it safe for everybody. And that also makes it humane. But that would cost millions to do, because to do things right, to keep animals relaxed, because it does an abattoir worker no favors to have a stressed animal. So like we said before, seeing all the videos of people mishandling and abusing animals, it's not good. So
doesn't it take the flavor? Is that right?
Yes, it can do. Yeah, if you get, especially with beef and pigs, there are certain chemical reactions. This is not an old wives' tale. A poorly stressed pig won't set; it'll stay flaccid because of the chemical. Because the chemicals it releases, not just adrenaline, but there's something else, and it totally ruins the meat. And same with cattle that I know. I'm sure it might happen with sheep, but I'm not a sheep expert. But definitely pigs, DFD, and you can get meat that won't set, and it's just totally stressed. You can get, because of the dispatching of an animal, if they're so stressed and the blood is pumping so hard, it can actually burst vessels.
All right.
No, so it can be an awfully, it's very easy to do it badly.
Yeah,
very easy to do it badly. So bearing in mind that's what we've been talking about. We haven't been talking about Ferraris or jet aircraft or anything like that. I think that's what I'd do. But I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to do something properly that I'm proud of, although you wouldn't have a gallery of visitors probably, but be able to do that and say, no, this is, and not act as an educating messiah, but help the education process so people respect it a bit more. I think, big abattoir, but not near your house or mine.
Okay, so the next question is, and I don't know how well you'll know because it depends how much you know about the period. is, do you think you could survive on a Viking age diet?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, because I'd have to.
You'd have to. It's a good answer.
Well, yeah, a lot of raw food, obviously, because that's what people did. And yeah, I'd probably be a bit slimmer.
Yeah. So the last question is there any food you'd miss if you were living on a Viking age diet?
Oh, that means I've got to know about a Viking age diet. I'd imagine, yeah, smoked streaky bacon. Did we have that in Viking times?
Anglo-Saxons definitely had bacon. Yeah, it's written about. I can't remember the details, but there are some like land rents and things were paid in bacon. So you're good on that front.
Yeah, I think I could eat bacon. Not every day.
You're going to be missing things like sugar, coffee, tea. Those come up a lot. Chocolate,
coffee,
chilies, tomatoes, potatoes.
Bacon and coffee then.
Bacon and coffee. You'd be fine with bacon. You've got your bacon. So it's a coffee you'd miss.
Yeah, I love my coffee. Yeah, I love my coffee now. Yeah,
that does come up quite a bit, I think.
Well, now you've educated me. Coffee.
I forgot to ask you earlier, is why FruitPig? The name.
Right. When I was a smallholder, I was working in a butchery shop, and I wanted to do an extra bit of income, so I started something I called the Home Butchery Service, HBS, and where people would have their animals legally slaughtered. They'd take them home, and then I'd go to their house with my little Land Rover and my little knives and blocks, and I'd cut their pigs up and wrap them up there and then for them. So the Home Butchery Service. I then started to make sausages by hand with a little stuffer, and I went to this lady's house, and she had 4 pigs. We cut them up. We then produced sausages to a recipe that I've always done for me, which was dried bread from a local bakery and hand spices and ground. And she loved them so much, and she's quite a business-orientated lady. She said, "We've got to sell these sausages." And I said, "Well, okay, missus, but I'm not too sure. I'm a bit busy doing this and that and the other." And she said, "Oh, no." And with that, it went quiet. But what this lady then did with the, I don't know, 10, 15 pounds I'd made her, she then went around all the posh hotels in the area, Norfolk, Cambridgeshire and Lincolnshire, and said, "Right, we'll start delivering to you in 3 months' time." Came to me and went, "Right, the business is set." And I said, "What?" And she said, "Oh, I've been to so-and-so, and they'd like orders." And I went, And the pigs we used for this lady, she kept them through winter and had an organic farm down the road. And she just used to throw all the fruit and veg from the organic farm shop to the pigs, and they lived on it. And so FruitPigs, autumn pigs, fed primarily on fruit.
That makes sense. All right, well, we'll wrap it up on that one, and then I'll ask you a few more extra questions. So if anyone wants to see any more with us, head over to my Patreon, and there's a few extra questions. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. If you enjoyed the podcast and want to hear more, remember to like and subscribe and give me a rating. For recipes and ideas, visit my website saxonforager.co.uk. I also have 3 cookbooks available to buy on Amazon worldwide. These are Eat Like a Viking Volumes 1 and 2 and Eat Like a Halfling. Thanks for watching.